Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and listening to my story. As you can see, the name on this side is Carol. However, the Weaver name is on this side. But for the sake of shade, we'll stay where we are. Carol was my daughter's married name, so we're actually together. My name is Edna Dye Weaver. I was born in Oskaloosa, Iowa in 1871. I attended Penn Technical College, and upon graduation, I moved here to Springfield. And Springfield is where I met my husband, who we'll speak about briefly and talk about him. His name was Ira Weaver. Ira was the chief designer for a farm manufacturing company called Satley. Satley opened their operation in Rochester in 1851. Now, they stayed there for a while, eventually moved for a few years to Taylorville, Illinois, and in 1888, they moved the entire operation here to Springfield. They were located at the corner of South Grand and 9th Street. I believe that complex is completely gone by now, but it covered 4 city blocks and approximately 7 acres. They were very well known for manufacturing plows and other farm equipment. As you can see from this advertisement that I found from the late 1800s, they did riding plows, walking plows, corn planters, various farm equipment, and did become one of the largest manufacturers in the United States. Now, Ira and I were married in 1900, and we had our first and only child, a daughter, in 1905. Her name is Cleo, and she is actually buried here in the family plot. Now, how many of you have taken your car for repairs and watched them hoist the car up so mechanics can work underneath the car? Well, my husband, Ira, is actually the one responsible for designing and inventing that lift, and is still used in some capacities today. As a kid, Ira had a great uncle that he loved to watch tinker and invent things. Well, his uncle had developed and invented something called a dropper. And what that was a piece of equipment that when grain was cut, it could be bundled by hand. Well, once Ira saw his uncle start inventing things, he too got the bug. His first invention was called a stock waterer. And what that was, it allowed cattle to develop their own drinking water by walking on a treadmill. Now, obviously not a treadmill as we know it today. Unfortunately, Ira was not familiar with patent laws at the time, so that piece of equipment was never patented. However, Ira became a creative genius and went on to develop lots and lots of garage equipment. We had over 400 employees. They were treated very well. Ira developed various valves that could supply lubricant and grease to cars, various lifts, various things for headlights, and even developed a special valve that allowed machines to wash cars. As I said, he was quite a creative genius. I loved treating the employees well with summer picnics and festivities around the holidays. Now, as you can see, this is the Weaver family plot side over here, and myself and Ira are not the only two that are buried here. Ira had a brother named Gaylord, who was also from Iowa, and he worked alongside Ira and actually married my sister Mabel. Having brothers marry sisters, we of course decided that not only would we spend a lot of time together, but we would also be laid to rest together. Now, Gaylord was responsible for most of the marketing done for Weaver Manufacturing. He also got into auto inspections, which allowed him to make many significant political contacts. After I passed away, Weaver Manufacturing was one of the only companies in the United States that in 1940 was awarded a federal contract to develop a lift that was capable of lifting 2,000-pound bombs during World War II. Life was good for the Weaver family. Now, let's move on to my favorite subject, which is me. I loved cars. I was a lot more capable than just riding in a car. I could sell cars, and I could close a deal. I became the first woman to become president and owner of her own car dealership in the U.S. It was located at 7th and Monroe Streets. I believe there's a parking garage there now. And we sold Chryslers. Many makes and models. We had Essex, Hudsons, Plymouths, Auburns, things like that. Now, my showroom was quoted in the paper as being the most beautiful showroom in the city. It was clean as a pin from top to bottom. We had 18 employees, from salespeople to mechanics, and again, they were all treated very well. I loved that. In 1928, Chrysler came out with a new town car, and I was quoted in the paper, "Look at this baby. Isn't she a beaut? Beautiful." I was quoted in the paper talking about how sleek the lines were, how large and luxurious the interior was, and you could buy this car for right at $1,000. That's quite a deal, and I could close it. I did learn how to drive this car. Well, in August of 1930, things took a bit of a dark side. I was at our home at 1319 South 1st Street, opening the mail. I opened a letter, and much to my fright, it was a death letter. The letter stated that if I didn't put $3,000 in an empty tile behind St. Vincent de Paul Church, that horrible things would not only happen to my family, but they would bomb my dealership. Well, in 1930, Springfield was fairly well known for organized crime, and we took those threats very seriously. We called the police. They sent cars to patrol our home to assure our safety, and they developed a dummy package that they placed in that empty tile behind St. Vincent de Paul Church. And they waited and watched. No one ever came to retrieve that package. Then about a week later, we were sleeping at 4 in the morning, and we were awakened by gunshots outside our home. The police commissioner, Sullivan, told us that he had been patrolling and noticed a dark car driving very slowly past our house. When he ordered the car to stop, a passenger in that car opened fire and shot Commissioner Sullivan right through the hat, barely missing his head. Well, gunfire ensued, back and forth. A car chase happened. The car got away. Neither the gunshots nor the extortion letter were ever solved. Now, my husband didn't think that the two were related. I did. And I remained pretty scared for a long time after that, but nothing ever happened and nothing was ever solved. Now, speaking about women and owning your own car dealership, I told my daughter one time that rarely are women named in the newspaper on their own merits. It's usually because of something associated with their husbands. I told her, you're mentioned by name 3 times: when you're born, when you get married, and when you die. I certainly hope that that has changed for women since that time. My car dealership remained open until 1934, when I passed away at the age of 56 of cancer. Ira went on and remarried to a woman named Gertrude, and she too is buried in the family plot. They continued to run Weaver Manufacturing until Ira sold the business in 1959, and the company that bought the business moved operations to Kentucky. Then Ira died in 1965. Now, some of you may remember or know someone who might have worked at that Weaver manufacturing complex after Weaver Manufacturing left. Many different companies and organizations occupied that space until 1979, when a huge fire destroyed almost the entire complex. The rest of the buildings that were left, all but one, was eventually demolished in 2014. There is one building left. I believe it's called Eurosport. And if you look at the very top of the crown of the building, you can see the Weaver name etched in the stone. Thank you all for coming and listening to my story. And the next time you buy a car, think of me.
Yeah.